Ladies and gentlemen, this is Barrierwulf, and welcome back to a brand new Destiny 2 Crucible focus video this time. The beta's come and gone, and in its wake is a plethora of emotions and feedback from the community, controversial at best, divided at worst, particularly on the PvP front. I've watched some of my favorite YouTube community members talk about how they feel on the state of the Crucible during this beta, including Imtash, True Vanguard, Patrick Casey, Miss 5000 Watts, and even Tony Moe had some input to give, which excited me since he's usually a Titanfall 2 guy. But while all of that is interesting and an ongoing conversation that I would recommend you all watch and chime in on, I wanted to discuss the Crucible we played during the beta from a personal performance perspective. It's kind of a lot of P's. I figured I might be able to make something out of that, like PPP or Triple P. Anyway, although the beta is over, Bungie did say that a lot of the problems the Destiny community was vocal about was already on their radar and potentially addressed in the current build of the game that's primed for release, which for the sake of clarity was not the build we played in the beta, also according to Bungie. However, I wanted to give my watchers some ideas they could take into this new Crucible to improve their performance, even if Bungie didn't tweak anything since the beta. Don't get me wrong, I hope they did. I hope there are positive changes that may even render some of these ideas I want to share with you obsolete in the final version. But in my opinion, a little just in case is never a bad thing. And with the PC beta coming out this late August, these tips may benefit those PC players out there looking to get a handle on Destiny 2 mechanics that console players have already experienced. So the very first thing I wanted to mention is to check your loadout, not just weapons either. Armor now is, in my mind, more important than ever to inspect and customize properly. I'll get to weapons in a later video, but first I wanted to really discuss armor and, more importantly, the stats that are attached to them that Guardians live and die by. These stats are what make armor so much more important than what it used to be. There's 3 stats in Destiny 2 that affect your overall health as a Guardian, your rate at which you regenerate said health, and the speed at which you walk, strafe, and your initial jump height. These categories are resilience, recovery, and mobility, respectively, and the way you spec these can determine how effective you are in the Crucible. These 3 all-important stats, or maybe I should say 2, but I'll get to that in a bit, used to be directly tied to your subclass. You could go into your subclass and select these bubbles with semi-customizable groupings of these 3 stats to make your Guardian the way you want within the confines of the options themselves. Now these are attached to your armor, so when you switch your starting Titan chest piece for that wicked Crucible one with the fur that makes you kind of look like a redder Shaxx, you just change your stats. And that could be a good or bad thing depending on how you play and on the stats themselves. The importance of having more health goes without saying, as even the smallest increase can make the difference between life and death. So maybe you just won a crazy engagement with a Titan that was hiding behind his shield. Or maybe there was a floofing Warlock that was using his vertical space really well, and he was also using that Twilight Garrison that he stole off that last Titan. Or maybe there's just a triple jumping, momentum changing hunter that you barely beat, and now you have an empty health bar, but you're still standing there, bleeding and panting. Maybe you just escaped around a corner in Endless Vale after you picked off an enemy, while his compatriot tries to finish off a weakened you. Maybe the burn from that incendiary grenade or that pesky sniper rifle of a Warlock melee almost killed you, but you're still alive. That's resilience at work, and while Titans are known to have it in spades, all the classes can at least rock 7 armor in the beta, which can definitely save your life. Recovery affects the rate at which you regen your health, and works closely with resilience. A higher recovery rate in my mind means that you are simply more battle ready and able to respond with more tactical aggression than if you had a lower number. Think about those times when you finished a kill weakened, and you're running from an aggressor. A good one, and he's giving you a real chase, and he's making you regret pushing in that little bit too much to get that first kill in the first place. You only have a couple seconds to catch your breath before he follows you around the corner and he starts shooting at you. A higher regeneration rate could give you enough health to survive a couple hits before a teammate shows up to give you some backup. Or you could even turn the tables on your aggressor by regenerating while you avoid him, maybe like floofing over the entranceway that he was about to chase you through, and engaging him after you have enough health to feel confident with a gunfight. You could come out on top, and then you have a cool story for Shaxx and your buddies after the match. You could be like, hey dude, I was totally getting chased by a hunter, and he doesn't realize that warlocks actually have recovery, so I just jumped up in the air, and by the time he came where I was running from, I had like most of my health back, and he just died. It was awesome. I could go on about the possible strategies that become open to you from having more recovery, but the beauty of the stat itself is that it allows you to make your own strategies around dealing with targets when you have less than optimal health or you're faced with a challenge like a 2-on-1, which you should ideally never do in Destiny 2, and I could get to why in another video, but for all intents and purposes, the utility of recovery is not realized few and far between in a Crucible match. Quite the opposite, actually. So, a TLDR, if you get shot, burned, nicked, punched, double punched, knife naded, or even hit with the Seekers from a Slova bomb, and you don't die, you're going to thank recovery when your radar lights up red when you are in the red, because you won't be in the red for as long as you could be, and maybe you'll survive or something, who knows. Mobility, as stated previously, increases the speed at which you walk, strafe, and the height you clear when you jump. Unfortunately, the last piece of the Destiny 2 stat trifecta is comparatively short, as mobility, in my mind, simply just doesn't have the utility that the other stats do. While it does indeed make you move slightly faster, as far as I can tell so far, that is indeed all it does. From a defensive perspective, I can see the potential in making it difficult for people to hit you by strafing back and forth faster. And I've had many losing gunfights against high mobility hunters who strafe those hand cannon headshots that I'm usually so good at, because I'm a god, right? Anyway, I'm inclined to say high skill hunters rather than high mobility, but the fact remains that I have been wrecked many times by hunters that have high mobility. Like, that's just the way it is. However, I am a believer in saying the best defense is a good offense, or at least that the best defensive tools are those that allow you to aggress more efficiently and tactically. I don't want to go too deep into the intricacies of that idea, as I believe it could fit in its own video, but for example's sake, would you rather have the ability to potentially avoid bullets, which is based on an outside influence of your opponent shooting you as well as your ability to avoid them in the first place, or make it so that that headshot that would have killed you didn't, which the aggressor cannot affect due to you having high resilience, and you could stress them out while they chase you because you're quickly regenerating health as you run away and you're denying them that potential kill with high recovery. The aforementioned examples may sound biased or even derogatory against mobility, but I'm not saying that mobility is absolutely useless, and I wanted to finish this thought by stating that I do indeed hope that mobility has many hidden gears that positively affect your Crucible experience and your Guardian's performance in the Crucible in unique but comparable ways to the other two stats in terms of value, because it's not like that in Destiny 1, and as the beta stood during play, I can't recommend agility in any capacity, really, since every point you put into agility subtracts from that survivability you could get from resilience or recovery. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was radar. I know everyone who's played Destiny 1 or most modern FPSs in general are familiar with radars to some extent, but every radar for every FPS behaves specifically to the FPS you play. For example, Titanfall 2's radar moves very differently than Destiny, and Destiny 2 is no exception to this rule. As a matter of fact, the way the Crucible has changed, at least with the smaller maps focused on team play, along with the tweaks to the radar itself, has concluded in a decidedly different experience for Destiny 2 radar usage, which, if not acknowledged and respected, can get even the most hardened 1,000-yard stare Guardians into trouble. That's a hard scope joke for you, because, I hard scope from time to time. Anyway, first and foremost, the radar in Destiny 1 doesn't ping targets from as far away as it does in Destiny 2, which from what I've seen in our very limited map experience thus far is a good thing. In Destiny 1, the comparatively long radar range makes true flanks pretty much impossible unless you catch the most egregious hardscoper in the act, trying to break the ice with that female hunter he's had his eye on for a while. There's another radar joke. Or if you're playing combined arms, which no one seemed to do, except for me. Feels bad, man. Anyway, while you could indeed attempt to approach someone from their side, the radar would let them know where you were long before you had an opportunity to take advantage of the advantage flanking is supposed to give you. Sometimes flanking would even be discouraged in Destiny due to the fact that the radar awareness your potential victim has could allow them to mount a defense that turns you, the hunter, into the hunted. Unless you're not using a hunter, then a Titan or Warlock into the hunted for clarification. Anyway, I'd estimate that the radar range in Destiny 2 is about 30% shorter than Destiny 1. Again, in my mind, this is so far a good thing from my experience. If we had the same range on our radar in Destiny 2 as we do in Destiny 1, you'd be able to see someone on your radar from Market almost all the way to Rugs in Midtown, and you'd pretty much have red on your radar indefinitely as long as you're in Endless Vale, like whatsoever. So now you have an opportunity to flank, as you won't alert your enemy from halfway across these smaller maps, as well as you yourself can react tactically, albeit quickly, to said flanks if you are on the wrong end of it, as when you see red on your radar, you know they're close enough to actually deserve your attention. Like they're legitimately close to you. They're going to do something to you. You need to turn around and deal with them. The other takeaway from my radar spiel I wanted to discuss is to pay attention to when you ADS, or aim down sights, and especially when you hardscope. Just in case some of you are new to Destiny's radar, it disappears when you aim your gun looking through your scope or your sights or whatever, and it pops back up when you lower your gun. The radar in Destiny 2 now has a short time after you finish ADS where the radar is still invisible, and it won't give you information on your surroundings. It's very similar to Blink on the Voidwalker from Destiny 1 right now, as well as Destiny 2 from what we've seen in the beta, although I think it's for a bit shorter of a length of time than Blink. This change has big implications on how it seems like Bungie wants you to play the game in Destiny 2. In Destiny 1, you could perform a kind of pseudo-hardscope with any gun by feathering the ADS trigger every couple seconds to quickly check if someone was approaching your camp and act accordingly. Now, being hyper-aware of your surroundings requires more of a trade-off, forcing you to choose between accuracy and awareness. You could use that sticky magnetic aim-assisted ADS Bungie is so well known for, as you see red on your radar and you know that enemy is right behind that pillar in front of you, and you got your Nightshade, you got kill clip going, you have him dead to rights, and you're ready to engage. You're just waiting for him to pop up left or right. But if you ADS too long, or at the wrong time, they can still get the drop on you, even though there's limited options for your enemy. For example, that guy behind the wall was a blinking Warlock, and he took advantage of your after ADSing radar lag, blinking behind you, catching you off guard, and getting that all-important first shot advantage. Now, true, they can't see their radar as well, but if they are industrious enough to know what is in front of them before they blink, it doesn't particularly matter. If he knows that you're the only one there, he's going to use blink, look down on you while he's blinking over you, and know exactly where you are while you're looking for him. You have to turn, acquire your target, and return fire while you're being shot at, or at least run away without being killed. A little side note, I kind of feel like the ADS radar lag has kind of buffed blink a little bit, as the radar is probably your most helpful tool in locating a teleporting Warlock post-blink, other than the little trail that the Warlock leaves itself, but it doesn't tell you exactly what the Warlock is. But anyway, now in order to take advantage of the radar helping you find a Warlock post-blink, you need to sacrifice that ADS stickiness for hipfire, which may have also gotten a slight buff in my opinion. As a last piece of advice, the radar no longer shows height differentials when you are detecting enemies. You only get information on the proximity of a guardian to you in terms of distance on a flat plane. This again forces you to think more tactically. Map awareness can mitigate the implications of this mechanic to some degree, but an added option, and what I think is Bungie's intended target, is to stay with teammates to cover sightlines you can't. This was never a bad idea in Destiny 1, but it has become a huge chunk of the meta in Destiny 2. It seems like teamwork is a focus that Bungie has doubled and tripled down on in their reimagining of the Crucible. Teamwork seems to be, to me, the new meta, and I think that guns and abilities now are just going to supplement that. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Anyway, that's where I wanted to quit for today. It's probably a long video by now. I have some more tips I want to share with you guys for Crucible performance in the future, as well as some simple practices you can do in Destiny 1 to prepare yourself for Destiny 2. But I'm going to get to work on that right now. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, farewell. Thanks for listening. Feel free to do the like and subscribe thing if you want. Otherwise, I'll see you later.
Think they'd mind if we take their pikes?
Oh, hey guys, I'm starting a channel. You want to subscribe?